I'm Katrina VanHuss, founder of Turnkey for Good and host of the podcast Seeding Social Good. I hope you will enjoy the guests we have today. They're three super smart people on the technology front for nonprofit, and I think you're going to enjoy it. If you like what you hear, hit subscribe and recommend us to your friends. Thanks so much. Emily, start with you. Who are you? Where'd you come from?
Wonderful. I'm Emily Eakin. I live in Western Massachusetts, but I grew up in DC. I spent almost 20 years in the industry and decided that there has to be a more efficient way for nonprofits to work. And so I went to the dark side and started consulting and realized that a lot of them are all about making money. I worked for some product companies and they were all about making money. So I've decided to hang my own shingle and basically help nonprofits raise more money more efficiently, focusing specifically on fundraising operations and the strategy behind implementing tools that help them optimize the money that they're raising in a more efficient way.
Love it. Tell me 5 organizations you worked with in terms of technology.
The Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation was where I really cut my teeth. Originally, I've done a lot in the cause and cure space, so worked closely with the American Heart Association for a number of years, Doctors Without Borders, LLS, Leukemia Lymphoma Society, and the Trevor Project was one that was near and dear to my heart.
Love it. And that is why we should listen to you. Mark, tell us who you are, where you came from.
Mark Becker, founding partner of Cathexis Partners, started this up just over 17 years ago. Like Emily, I was working with another agency and decided to put out my own shingle then, and I've been providing nonprofits with technical support ever since.
Give me 5 names of organizations you've worked with.
Susan G. Komen is a big one. Been working with them with the 3-Day and a lot of their other peer-to-peer fundraising campaigns for many years. Alzheimer's Association, Roswell Park Alliance, Memorial Sloan Kettering. Oh boy, there's just so many. Second Harvest Central Florida here, a local food bank. I've been working with them for over 12 years now, I think, probably 15.
That's great. Excellent. Now, Erik, tell us who you are and where you came from.
Hi, everybody. I'm Erik Tomalis. I am a longtime recovering fundraiser. Spent my gritted it out on the road. Made a little over 5,000 donor visits in my career. I firmly believe in human connection. And my last organization I served in, I remember sitting down with my executive and she was like, hey, we have to do more with less. I think that's what we're hearing a lot of lately in nonprofits. To be honest, I fell into tech about 5 years ago because I saw that the world was shifting and I saw this opportunity where, Emily, you said it perfectly and more eloquently than I, of just focused on efficiencies. And I think there's a place for technology to have a deeper personalized human connection in our space. I spent the last 5 or so years at a CRM, and now I'm at Avid. I'm our chief revenue officer for Avid, which is a brand new tech orchestration. We're the first ever fundraising operating system where nonprofits can see clarity through all the different systems and have that personalization at scale. I'm from Pittsburgh. I don't know when this is going to be airing, but I'm a diehard Pittsburgh Steelers. And Mark is the Bears. And this weekend, the Bears will be playing against my team, the Steelers. So we'll have to see how that turns out.
Let's put together a bet, my friend.
There we are.
Today's Tuesday. This will be out on Friday. Talk your game. Here we go. 5 organizations you've worked with.
Oh, man. Worked with or worked for? I served with
Either
St.
one.
Jude, the Boy Scouts, a lot of universities, a lot of youth-based organizations, a lot of food banks. You name the organization, I probably worked with them in some capacity or another.
Love it. That's why I think you guys are such a wonderful and unique group in that you have touched so many people's data and technology. I want one word, starting with you, Mark. The state of the industry of the nonprofit sector in regard to technology. One word.
Progress.
Erik.
Adopt it. Let's go.
Emily.
Disruption.
I like it. All right. So let's jump in first and foremost on AI. And what I see in the industry is a lot of leadership hesitant to confess they don't know what we're talking about. They don't know, like, I got this new kitchen tool, but I don't know what it does, but everybody's got one. So I need one and I need to be able to talk about it. So I'm going to use some words other people use, but I don't really know how to integrate it into my organization. Mark, give me your impressions. What's happening there?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of individuals and organizations using it. I think the vendors have been picking up on it for a while. I've been going to conferences and all of a sudden everybody is an AI expert. I'm not sure how that happens. I thought it was 10,000 hours before you could become an expert, but there you go. But there's a lot of people that are saying that their tool is all about AI. I think Salesforce and Microsoft have been putting out surveys for years saying hey, has Copilot or such and such AI helped increase sales? And I'm like, what are you talking about? It's just marketing until it's not. And I'm not sure in many cases they're past the marketing of it.
Okay, Erik, give me your thoughts.
I think AI's here. It's disruptive. I think 3 years ago when I was talking about AI, I would ask people in the room, what's one word you would think of? And everyone was scared of the robots, right? Skynet, robots taking over the world, Megan. Whereas now when I talk about it here, the audience is, we've embraced it. It's here. And I think leadership is ready for it. I think our donors are ready for it. And I recommend it all the time to nonprofit leaders is use it in your personal life. I use it in my personal life all the time. I feel more comfortable in it, but I also have a business version of all of my AI tools to represent the organization. So I can feel comfortable with it and use it in my professional and personal lives.
Emily, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's right to try it in your personal life. I definitely agree with that, Erik. I also think it's right to stop focusing so much on the tools and the functionality. I think that's where we've gotten it wrong, Mark. The stat from MIT was like 95% failure rate or something. And I think it's because we've been pushing this, oh, you've got this agent or you've got this bot that can do this. And I know it sounds so stupid and simple, but I would literally go back to what are the problems you're trying to solve? I really think the efficiency part of this is where we could really benefit. I spent my career in fundraising operations, so I'm a nerd, but I think that's where I would focus, is less on the constituent donor facing part of it right now. We know there needs to be a relationship and a human touch for a lot of that, especially high touch fundraising. One of the biggest problems you're trying to solve for, and you're always going to have limited staff and they're overworked and underpaid. That's been an industry problem forever. And so how could you figure out some of those areas where you could leverage automation or efficiency, things like prospect research or pipeline management, automation of workflows, right? Business processes, helping to integrate data better. It doesn't sound sexy, but I think that's where you need to go. The reason I think people are talking about it is you can't make money off of it. If you're selling a product, it's not some bright new license or bright new tool, but I really think it ties more to efficiency. I always joke I had twins to be more efficient, and that's where I see AI. It's just one more tool in our toolkit where we can leverage ourselves to be more efficient. It's like embracing the internet, embracing social media. It just needs to be woven into your overall organizational strategy and not tacked on.
Well, I love what you said, and I love what Mark said, because I think what's going on in our space right now is we need to find the solution for the problem that we are solving in our own organization. And the problem with nonprofit leaders is there are so many tools out there. It is exhausting. I think right now, I just looked at G2 the other day, there are 10,000 generative AI tools, writing tools. We only talk about OpenAI or Claude or Gemini, but there's 10,000 of just that one sector, and there's hundreds of thousands of tools. I think nonprofits just need that delineation of what's the tool I should be using right now to solve X problem. And I don't think they know that because right now they're worried with year end, Giving Tuesday, and a whole host of other stuff that they're just trying to keep the lights on.
But Katrina, your point is really valid in terms of buzz in the translation. I always say a lot of what I spend my time is just translating between the business team or fundraising and IT. I think you're right. We've blown up this whole ecosystem to be experts, Mark, to your point, but we've also made it more complicated. You need to live in this agentic world, and you have to, we are not all PhDs. None of us are data scientists. To your point, Mark, I don't think many of us are experts, despite pretending we are. Right. So I think we have to break it down a little bit more and make it more digestible, because these folks don't have the time to necessarily understand the latest trends. They just know that they need to raise more money, and they need to raise more money more efficiently. I like your point, Katrina, about helping to translate and bring it down to a level that is they're able to absorb as part of their kind of already busy lives.
So if you had a CEO who was willing but ignorant, how would you start them? Well, if you got shoulder to shoulder with them, you're like, I'm going to help you with this, just understanding the landscape. What are 3 things you would do? What you would ask them to do?
Where is their staff time being wasted? Yeah. Where is the staff spending all their time? Let's start there.
And so when you say, let's start there, tell me what that means. Anyone.
Let's look at it and see what we can do to streamline it. If it's accounting and it's a month-end invoicing time or whatever it might be, or accounts payable, account receivable, look at the steps that you go through that and what can AI help with?
I think of AI, all the tools inside my arsenal, as my intern. It's never a finished project. It's like your best intern. And maybe you have 4 or 5 different interns that are doing the bookkeeping, that are doing the content writing, that are just doing the dumb work that we as leaders have to do on a regular basis, responding to email, creating drafts, like all those things, time saving, but it's not the finished product. That's our job, where it's going to be human intervention and strategy and direction. But I think just getting a bunch of interns that are running at full speed.
That is a really nice way to look at it. Okay, so now let's assume like you've got me excited. I'm a CEO. I'm like, yes, I'm going to do this. And I start using it all the time, every day. How am I going to screw up? What are the dangers? I'm particularly thinking of data privacy. What are the things I should not do? Erik, why don't you go first?
Don't download your CSV file of all your database and upload it to ChatGPT and say, hey, who should I visit with? That's putting out all of your contact information all over the dark web. That is a huge red. Use it like it's your mom's and your grandmother's information. Start breaking down and I never say the word correctly. Anonymize your data. Use con IDs, like all that different components. But there's places that you can be able to do good, but there's also places where you do harm. My wife is an interior designer. Her business partner has 4 kids. Her oldest kid the other day, she just told me he's 7 years old. He's just signed up for Cub Scouts. Eagle Scout here, love all things and whatever else. So I was really excited and I'm his godfather. So I went to grab a photo of Finn off my phone and I went to upload it to ChatGPT and I said, create a fire pit camping environment with Finn and everything else. And ChatGPT came back at me, which I thought was really cool. They said, you can't do this. It looks like a child. And so we have a privacy setting already in place. So make sure your settings are set to that standard on the back end of all your AI tools, and you can have those different components there. That's why I'm not getting any money from ChatGPT, but I tell people all the time, pay the $20 a month to get those system protections on the back end.
Yeah. Emily, any thoughts on that?
I think whenever possible, try to leverage the AI functionality in your existing tools because they're often set up behind firewalls, right? So if you're a Salesforce customer, they've set up that whole privacy layer and there is some good AI functionality already built into that tool. Same thing with Virtuous, same thing with many of the other CRM platforms. Microsoft obviously has Copilot already built in. But I do think the wild west of picking one of these random AI tools that you know nothing about, you have no sense of their security policy, and suddenly incorporating your data into it is more risky. If you're going to go with a third-party tool, make sure you anonymize or protect the data of your constituents. You probably don't need to put their names. Like even when I use client information, I often anonymize that and just say, this is the type of organization I'm working with. What do you recommend? Mitigate your risk by using tools that you already know are safe because they're from parties that you've already engaged with and signed contracts with.
All right, I'm going to go to topic number 2. And Mark, I'm going to start with you. And that is, tell me your thoughts about the GoFundMe mess.
Yeah, someone stepped in it there. I'm sure I heard him talking about this and that it was coming out, and my mind was already starting to roll into these nonprofits aren't asking you to do this, and you're doing it. I'm like, okay, good luck with that. But yeah, with the search engine optimization and all the things that were raising their fundraising pages to the top versus a nonprofit's actual legit fundraising page donation form, that turned out to be sketchy as hell. And I think they're definitely paying the cost for that.
Yeah. Erik, you look like you're pondering mightily.
I'm pondering and mightling. I'm going to have a little bit of a spicy off take to this. And I think through it is like the nonprofit industry itself, where dollars are going up, donors are going down. There's all these challenges that are happening and everything else. I'm going to be the eternal optimist where I think they were doing good in the beginning of the year by doing this. And what I mean by that is we have all these donors over on this little pile and they have this huge GoFundMe donor list of saying, hey, let's get that community to talk to this community. That's where my hope and my dreams were. But how they communicated that, how they did the tipping and did all the other pieces around it, I didn't like any of that. So that's where my piece is, where I'm like, maybe they should have, I know they tried to communicate it during the beginning of the year at some conferences, at their conference, they made that point clear, but it wasn't enough. And I think we as nonprofit leaders need to learn from the crisis management that happened of just the social media firestorm, how to manage a crisis, how do we communicate, how do we do all those different things, how do we make people comfortable with what we intended versus what actually happened. Yeah.
I'm going to take your spice level and ramp it up a little bit.
Yeah.
I think the pissiness is more about nonprofit executive control than it is about, was it a bad thing or is it going to be good for donors? Because the donors have already told us, yeah, we like this. We're going to do this. It's just a matter of who gets there first. Even though it looked like a trip and fall, I think whoever did it was going to trip and fall. To make an analogy, their functionality is very much like GoFundMe. In fact, it's probably a roadmap for GoFundMe. The nonprofits did not lean into Tiltify's organizational offering. They were doing the same thing as GoFundMe, but one by one upon request. And the nonprofits didn't say yes. So I think it had to happen. This was a ripping of the Band-Aid off Emily, tell me why I'm wrong.
I don't think you're wrong. I just think my optimism, Eric, has been crushed in the last 10 years. Everyone's trying to make a dollar. And I guess this is why I never really fit in the consulting and product world in the last 10 years, is that I genuinely want to make the world a better place. And I get that I'm coming from a point of privilege that I can do that and not focus on the bottom line. We all have expenses and mortgages, but it's just not driven me. And I do think that we have to be realistic that these companies are driven by profit. And while there is probably some good that they want to do, Eric, I know the original classy people were into supporting the industry and come from industry, but I do think we all have to go in eyes wide open that the bottom line is what people really care about. These consultants that are working for nonprofits are often working at significant margins, 50, 60, 70% margins. These licenses that these product companies are selling aren't always necessarily in the best interest if you look at the number of shelfware and unused license they have. And so maybe it's just my pessimism of having been on the dark side for the last 10 years, but I feel like revenue and profits are driving a lot of the work with nonprofits. I think that was probably underneath a lot of what GoFundMe Pro was doing, ultimately trying to drive profits. And that tip jar is a great way for them to incentivize donors to pay their bottom line.
Let's talk about tips.
Mark, I go to you for the history of everything. This isn't the first time this has happened in our industry. Others have done this before, right?
Charity Navigator doesn't. That's what they do.
Okay.
Yeah, not quite the same, but there's different flavors of it. This is like a world grab.
It's a lot of the free things that nonprofits get that are really a monkey's paw because you can't really be successful with the free part. There are many instances of folks that try to show up as supporting the industry that are really trying to make money off of the industry on the backs of some virtue signaling.
Fair point.
All right. Speaking of tipping, we have for it or against it. Mark?
I guess in theory, personally, I think it's awful and it looks gross, but it's here. And the private investors, private equity firms are all in the nonprofit space because of recurring revenue, those transaction-based things. And it's only going to become more, it's going to be the default. It's not going anywhere. All these private equity firms learn this in the corporate space. Everybody is expecting to be tipping now. It's gross. It's here. But it's a necessary evil. It's not like anybody's going to be offended by seeing it. They might roll their eyes, but I don't think anybody's going to close out of a page at this point.
And sorry, Katrina, let me just make sure I understand the definition of tipping. This isn't the kind of point of sale roundup for the nonprofit. This is when you give an online donation and you can tip back to
on
the
top
organization.
of the percentage fee.
For the
Exactly.
software itself, yeah.
Yeah, but it doesn't necessarily go to the nonprofit, or does it in theory go to the
It
nonprofit?
does not go there.
It just pays the software fee for the company.
In theory, it does because they might not have an annual fee or their rate might be reduced. But if you can really prove that is another thing. Yeah.
In the beginning, it was covered the processing
Right.
fee, and then
That's
it
what I remember.
evolved into
Okay.
a tip. Eric, thoughts?
I don't get it. I'm on the upside, Mark. Our friends in South Carolina put it out there in their CRM and their online giving platform of saying, hey, it's going to a foundation. I don't get it. There's so many great tools out there that don't do it. And this is for the smaller nonprofits that are really getting taken advantage of. I think there's so many other great tools out there. Covering the percentage fee is of value because that is a flat fee for nonprofit organizations. They don't want to do that, but the tip, I just don't get it. I know it's here, Mark. You know it's here, but I just don't get it.
Yeah.
I think you're right, Eric. Sorry to interrupt, but to me, it's all just, I think, some of the games that people play to show revenue. It's like when I used to go to the galas, they'd be like, 100% of the money raised here goes directly to mission. And how are you paying for the chicken dinner that we're all eating and the balloons at the front door? As long as you're maximizing the money to the mission or the nonprofit, I get it. But we all have to be realistic about the overhead we have to pay. If they're using a tool, they should probably pay some sort of license fee to that tool, right? If we're running a credit card, there's probably a credit card fee. It goes back to the overhead myth that has driven our organizations for so long, which is basically work in a scarcity resources that don't actually support the organization properly. And so then you beg, steal, and borrow, and you don't actually work very efficiently. I guess fundamentally I disagree with it because I think it perpetuates this idea that we shouldn't be investing in the people, processes, and tools that allow us to raise the money that we raise.
I agree.
Okay, we don't plug products, but I got to ask Eric this question. And in the course of answering it, I want you to tell us what Abbott does. Is there a future where we don't stand up structured CRMs, but simply ask a question of our data?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been thinking about this for the last couple of years, and I worked at a CRM, and I just think where the future is going is I think it's going to be a shelved tool. I think it's going to be a Rolodex, your back office. We're going to have all these great products and solutions servicing and working with that to serve out there in the market. It did serve its place 20, 30 years ago to get us to where we are today, but I think it's just going to continue to evolve and grow. Look at for-profit businesses. They're still using it, but it's their email house, mail house, online giving tools. So I think it's still going to be the center point, but not the focus, if that makes sense.
So the path to that future is, in terms of the nonprofit executive, to become facile with AI, how to write prompts, how to ask the right question. How does that change the consultant world? What do they turn into? Prompt writing coaches, data lake setup coaches? What does the future look like?
Is that to me or is that to Emily?
Mark, you got something?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely a great question. So it's art and science, all of it, right? All the tasks that have to be done. And if you think about something like screening, the oldest version of what people think of with AI, you can just get all that data yourself or pay to get it and combine it all. That's the science of it, right? Just getting all that data, pulling it together. Coast Guard, how many of my people have yachts? How many have 3 bedrooms, 3 garages, that kind of stuff. But it's all the art of it needs to be understood. So don't just pay for these expensive tools or be excited about having a platform that is going to do something for you if you don't know what to do with it once it serves it up to you. I also think of it like a baker, like my wife, God bless her, she's a great baker. And she makes pies, right? A few times, not all the time, but definitely several times a year. And normally she will get a pre-made crust just because that's not where the magic's at. Most bakers don't waste their time doing rough crust and puff pastry and all that. And so she will go ahead and get it pre-made and then do all the hard work in the actual baking. And I think AI is the same way. Have it do the stupid stuff and then put your art on it, make it your own.
Exactly.
Yeah. Emily, thoughts?
I think that's right. I'm definitely where Erik is going in terms of the evolution of the tech stack. And I actually don't even think CRM is at the center anymore. I think not only is data now the focus, it's also at the center. The hub and spoke model that we used to have, the CRM and all the fundraising tools that would go off of it, one cause. I think we're now moving to data at the center of it. And AI is the tool on top of it where you would interact with that data. To your point, Katrina, we've got to make that interaction seamless so that we don't have hallucinations. We don't have people that don't know how to ask the right way. I totally agree with that. But I think it's actually going to allow you then to have much more flexibility in the tools that the users use. So maybe your major gift officers are still using a CRM, but that's a dozen staff at most, depending on the size of your organization. It's because everything will just have to be normalized back in the data set, in the data lighthouse or data warehouse, instead of paying for all these licenses and everyone having to log into CRM and logging into Lumen Online to run their walkathon and logging into CRM to see what's going on with the donor. I think everyone just now goes to this AI prompt to see what they need about the holistic view of everything. And if they need specific functionality to run their gala or their major gift moves management program, they could use individual applications for that. But then the key becomes not the features and functionality of those applications.
You're on, talk more.
Yeah, donor perfect versus virtuous versus fun, all these different tools. Why move right now? This functionality isn't that much different or better. I was a Blackbaud customer for years. I was a Salesforce customer. Yes, there are nuances, but if you're creating tech debt, if we know at some point in the next 3 to 5 years that you're potentially going to not necessarily need to use that center of the universe as CRM. So why would you pay for a $1 billion migration? That's usually the most expensive part of
talent, all that stuff, money.
Any kind of customizations of that CRM interface. Why don't you instead just make sure that all the data is accessible, invest in a Snowflake or a data warehouse or data infrastructure, there are lots of them, right? And just then make sure that data is accessible. If you're going into your committee meeting, you know that this guy just attended the gala and gave a $10,000 sponsorship. If you're going in to ask this guy for $1 million, you know that he was just up on the Hill advocating for your organization as part of the congressional efforts. So I think the whole stack is actually in some ways moving from CRM to data, but also will allow it to proliferate more. We start to consolidate and move to one platform. And I think we're actually moving back to best of breed solutions where you can plug and play whatever specific functionality people need, as long as you can normalize the data. So I keep saying, I wouldn't switch CRMs right now. I would just make sure whenever you're getting, it integrates properly.
Emily, I just met you today. I've been saying exactly what you've been saying for the last few months. I agree with you wholeheartedly. I firmly believe nonprofits should have the best in breed and have everything integrated together and all the different things. I know we're not promoting, but you asked earlier about who Abbott is, and that's what we do. We sit on top of all of their tech stack and aggregate it and actually provide all the visualization, segmentation, personalization. And then we have machine learning in the back end that is actually real AI based on the fundraising best practices to create content to push out in those multi-channels. So literally, I'm seeing this on a regular basis. I'm seeing a hospital the other day has 4 CRMs. They have a Razor's Edge, a Virtuous, and 2 Donor Perfects. And my direct conversation with them was like, just work with us, because to your point, to migrate to one of those, it's going to be 3 systems. And now the hospitals have a viewpoint as well as the network. I see that's where it's going right now in our space.
My only question would be, Mark, the enterprise space, a bunch of the bigger nonprofits. I've spent a lot of my career up there. But if I'm honest, I've found that to be challenging. It can be so bureaucratic, hard to move some of these organizations. When I talk to folks about this concept, they say not at the enterprise level. These guys have invested $10 million in these
Sunk
big
cost fallacy.
Yeah, American Cancer, these big ones that I've worked with have invested a lot of money. They may be slower to move off of this because a lot of their investments didn't pay off. And you see that already. So that's partly why actually I've started to work with smaller, more nimble nonprofits, because I do think there's a more willingness to jump because they've jumped so many times already because they've been so disappointed. But Mark, what's your sense? Maybe my timeline of 3 to 5 years of CRM no longer being the center of the universe is aggressive for these larger nonprofits that really have already spent so much time and effort and money in trying to make this system work.
They've had to justify it to the board and to all the right people over the years. I think you're right, but then there's the good argument where you were starting out, which is no reason to move CRMs anyways, right? Maybe just change the shift. And when you spent 10 or 20 million, then a $500,000 or $1 million on an AI solution to put a nice cover on that, that's nothing.
Yeah.
So we're saying that sunk cost will keep enterprise executives from making the best decision in all likelihood, because they've made an argument to spend the money and now they've got to make an argument to that maybe it wasn't necessary. So what's going to happen is they're going to stick where they are and lay something like Avid on top to access all data. When I was growing up, my parents beat it into me that they was not a pronoun that you use for a person. And that was just normal. Like, it was natural kid language. And then they beat it out of us. Now I'm trying to get back into it. And I feel like it's the same thing with Excel spreadsheets. Effectively, what I hear you people saying is, hell yeah, keep your own spreadsheet. You do you, boo. Is that what I'm hearing? Oh my God.
It's
You don't
definitely
want
where
to
I
have
think we're moving.
silos, and you want to make sure that the right people are pulling the right data. Yeah. In a perfect world, every organization would have a data scientist, but we're not there yet.
Nathan Chappelle is itching. But
I
wow.
found a nonprofit that has a data scientist, and honestly, it's not even a big nonprofit. It's a 3 million contribution revenue organization. When I met that individual, I was like, good on you. That is amazing, because I agree. To me, data, we always talk about data, but at the end of the day, there are donors, our volunteers, our constituents, and we need someone to, Emily, your point earlier is like, they come in an advocacy event, they come to a gala, we need to know those stories. And I think we need to have someone who can aggregate it.
I think the key also, though, is, and I know I keep feeling like I'm dumbing it down, but it's because I've been surrounded by so many bad consultants with big PowerPoints and fancy words and shitty advice. Sorry, no cussing. But
Here. No, we do first here. Yes.
But I do think you get back to some of the fundamentals. What's the number one issue struggling, most nonprofits struggle with? It's retention, right? Has been time over time again. We've put up with this like 45% or whatever it is retention rate for so long. And so I think if you go in with what's the problem you're trying to solve? Okay, if that's the business problem that many nonprofits are trying to solve. And to your point, Katrina, the world is going to change in the next year, right? It's unstable geographically, it's unstable politically. The economy is changing. We've been moving from this kind of focus on quantity of donors to now quality donors, with high touch donors making up a bigger pool, to kind of Erik's point. And so I think we've got to really then get back down to the basics. And that's where I worry with some of this AI stuff, is it's just bright, shiny objects of trying to figure out how you can sell one more thing to one more nonprofit. And what I like instead with the data scientist idea is maximize what you have. I think the next year, I think it's destabilizing in terms of the products and the way we sell to nonprofits and the way nonprofits buy. But for the industry itself, it could actually be stabilizing, where you double down and get more value out of what you've already purchased that you're not using effectively.
Emily, I'm going to go a different route on you. I agree with a lot of what you just said, but I'm going to go a different. I go to a lot of conferences, and I actually attended a couple sessions last week. And you're right. These people that are on stage are professing stories and best practices from 30, 40 years ago. They may have written the books, all those things. And the take I took away was how they fundraise pre-pandemic and how we fundraise post-pandemic is completely different. I struggle saying I'm a fundraiser because I fundraised before the pandemic and during the pandemic. And I think how we adopt and adapt and take the future. So I do think AI is here. I think technology is here. We have to change the way of doing things, but also going back to what you said, I still think there's some key foundational elements that we've learned that are still a part of it, but we just have to attack it differently, if that makes sense.
I'm curious, you've done this for so long, Mark. I mean, this really changes your world as a consultant, as someone who advises nonprofits. One of the questions I would have is, okay, we all agree, data scientist, great idea. Where do you get one? Do you build your own data scientist, or where do they come from for a nonprofit?
Yeah, they're out there for sure. They're not out there in the nonprofit space very much, but they're definitely out there in the for-profit space. And I think, as a lot of people always say, nonprofits need to think more like that, a for-profit organization. And that's one way. They're out there for sure. And they're also graduating at a very fast rate. That's the good news. If this all happens, I'll be out of business pretty soon, because nonprofits won't need technology support because they'll just have it built in and ingrained platforms, AI, and the staff that's coming up. Not that the staff that's there now is bad. It's just a whole different world. Erik's right. Things have changed since the pandemic, especially when I think about peer-to-peer fundraising and all the changes there. It's interesting times, and people have to get creative with what they're doing. And I think, Katrina, you and I just spoke about this recently. It's less and less about the focus on the nonprofit and more about the individual and who they're fundraising for.
There was a story in Fortune about a recently mentioned billionaire. He's 12 years old, and he built it on the backs of AI, but he did it differently. His business model is that he trains AI for your use case. As an example, his company reached out to my husband, who's a social psychologist, to help refine the answers that particular use case AI would give. And he offered to pay him a very generous $75 an hour, which I thought was fascinating. This whole thing is fascinating. He built $1 billion business, somehow getting people like Otis to work for $75 an hour, training AI. That's it. That's his business. What does that mean for us? Is it good news, bad news?
I can hardly keep up. I'm in the AI space all the time, and every 3 or 4 weeks, there's always a brand new tool. It's so overwhelming right now. My biggest fear as a competitor, we don't have a single competitor in our space. And my biggest fear is some kid who is 18 years old in a basement that can draft it up over a weekend. That's my fear, but it's also my hope, where we will have the first $1 billion company where there's one employee. That's where the world, from a for-profit standpoint, will be in the next 5 or 10 years. It's the good and the bad right there.
I think you're right. But when you say what's our value in the future, I still think that translation piece. Like, we all understand the industry really well. You can come in with tools and technology, but if you don't know how to translate it to this industry, to nonprofits specifically, it can fall really flat. And to your point, Erik, if we're trying to evolve to the next generation, right, there's this huge transfer of wealth happening. $80 trillion is coming down from boomers to millennials in the next 10 years. How do we talk to then, these younger donors, millennials, differently? We know they want to volunteer more. We know they want more transparency. They want more digital tools because there's digital first. But I think if you walk in with just a straight up data scientist AI background, I don't think it's going to resonate with a nonprofit. I think part of why all 4 of us have had some success is that we walk in, we say, we've been in your shoes. We understand what you're trying to do. We know that look of that scared parent who's just been diagnosed with this disease and how they want some control. And that's why they want to give, because they're so out of control. Or we understand the impact that this food bank can have on saving lives by creating this meal that is out of respect for the local community. To your point, Erik, I use it professionally and personally, but I do still think the secret sauce is being able to translate that information into the true needs of our clients.
That's why I said from the beginning, it's an intern, right? We are still needed. It's going to enhance the work we do, but it's our intern.
I think it makes us faster and more efficient. I'm now passing the savings on to my clients. If you sat through 10 hours of discovery meetings and had to then type up all the notes, and if you can now record those and have AI help you summarize them, and you get that down to 2 hours, that's potentially thousands of dollars of savings to our clients.
And we record every single one of our customer meetings and conversations, even our sales cycle and everything else. But we grabbed all of those fathoms from our customers and used AI to scrape all the conversations to see how people are feeling about our technology and our tool, the good, the bad, the ugly. And we pushed it up to our product team, and our product team is using all this information. They would have had to sit in every single meeting hours upon hours, but it's literally done in about 2 hours every month.
That is remarkable. Mark, you've been doing this 17 years. From when you started to right now, the change has been incredibly dramatic. what does this mean for staffing inside nonprofits? Are our leaders keeping up on the AI front? Maybe that's a bridge too far, but in general, are they keeping up with this new world?
I do think so. I see a
Yeah.
lot. I have a lot of conversations at different conferences throughout a year. So there's a vast majority that seem to be very much trying to keep their finger on the pulse. They all feel like they're failing. And I think a lot of them just don't give themselves enough credit. Same with their teams. I think it's all about not getting distracted by the shiny AI can solve the world and ruin the world. It's like what you do with it and making sure that you have the right people and getting the basics, have clean data. I'm working with somebody right now migrating their data, and it's not pretty. I can clean this up for you, or you could do it yourself. You want to pay me or give up your time? You should have done this. But going forward, let's not do this again in 5 years. But I'll probably talk to them again in 5 years. And that's
Um,
okay.
So, Mark, on the another front, I wanted to touch on here our regulation in regard to donor data and nonprofits in general. There's a lot of fear right now because of the GoFundMe thing in California. That's going to make all our lives hell. What are your thoughts on that, Mark?
Yeah, every year we usually do contract agreements through the calendar year or an organization's fiscal year. We're in that renewal cycle right now. And every year the few come back to us and say, hey, we need your SOC 2 compliance. I'm not that guy. I don't have a platform. I don't need that. But there's more and more people that are bringing in their law representatives and adding more governance and disclosures to everything that they do. And it definitely is necessary, but and best to err on over asking than the other alternative.
Yeah.
Emily, what's your experience here?
Yeah, I think this is where I don't think we can all be experts on everything. So I very intentionally, with my new firm, have said I just want to focus on the strategy. There's a lot of people that can help you with the tools, the implementation of those tools. I'm not one of them. I think where the people struggle is how do you align the tech with your business goals? And so that strategy piece, that kind of before your hands hit the keyboard, let's make sure that we're building the right thing, is where I really focus on. So I basically say security is important. Governance is important, and let me recommend a whole bunch of people that can help you with that. N10 provides some amazing free resources and templates. I push people there, but I also want to be honest, to Mark's point, I'm not an expert in that. And so I rather see nonprofits work with folks that can provide better skill sets as this evolving technology changes. All of your tech stack needs to be protected. And we've lost so much credibility in the industry because I think we have been sloppy with donor data. To Mark's point, the bar has to be extra high because I still feel as an industry, we're not fully trusted.
Erik, this is your bailiwick.
Yeah, and to Emily's point, we live in a trust-based society in our nonprofit industry. This is where I get upset, where our friends in California, our friends in South Carolina eroded that trust. One happened to be hacked right before the pandemic and the other earlier this year. And it just hurts. It's a big inflection point. All of us, not just the technology solutions, but the strategists, the implementation people, the consultants, everyone. Now we have to have a heightened sense of security. We as nonprofit leaders have to do the research on what they're evaluating. To your point, Emily, asking the questions, making sure everyone is protected. Are they a part of fundraising.ai, which is the ethical standards of all things? What are they doing in our industry beyond the venture-backed world?
All right. I want each of you to tell me if you could design the ideal gig for yourself that was super hard, super satisfying, and you knew you could kill it. Could be something you've already done, or could be like, this is the future for me. Erik, who is it?
I'm in this place right now. I love it. This is it. I am having the absolute best experience. You guys have known me for a number of years being out speaking. Last week, I had a moment. I was asked to MC a conference and completely was nervous going into it. You guys know my personality, completely crushed it, had the best time ever. Everybody was engaged and it was all things. So I'm on the books saying I want to be an MC at a conference moving forward.
Unexpected answer. Thank you for that. All right. Emily, what's the gig you would love to get that you knew would keep you up at night, but you could kill it?
I think what I am doing is definitely a big piece of that. Hanging my own shingle only 6 months ago. What I'm most excited about is having an impact on the industry. I spent 20 years in the industry. My heart and soul is still in the industry. Seeing the impact that I can have on profits, helping them raise more money more efficiently to support their mission is really rewarding for me. Focusing on these smaller nonprofits is what I'm really enjoying now. I can actually see the wheels turning and the impact they can have, as opposed to the oil tanker that's sometimes harder to shift. That was a very strategic move of mine, and I'm still getting used to this smaller nonprofit size and lower budgets. I'd say that's a piece. And then I think you and I have talked a lot about, I love the thought leadership. I love pushing the envelope of where are we going, nerding out with people like you guys to think about where we're going. So I've done some public speaking, but I think I'd love to do more of that now that I'm working for myself and have more flexibility, talking to folks about where this industry is going and helping make sure that nonprofits are making smart decisions that truly are as future-proof as possible to make the biggest impact they can have, I think is where I'd love to be. So I'm just going to follow you around, Katrina, for a while and ride your coattails.
I don't know about that. I curse too much. You might get in trouble.
I love it.
Mark.
I admire your success out there. You've been
Oh,
great.
thank you. Mark, what's your perfect gig? Think about a nonprofit. What do they look like? One that you know you can fix.
It's definitely not a specific vertical or size. It's what we've been doing at Cathexis here this whole time. Any organization with a technology challenge, I just love having those conversations. As I continue to gray and get older, I love being able to even quicker answer. I know someone that does, and just being really comfortable in what we're doing here. So yeah, I love the gig I have.
So you like problems. Everybody likes problems. I like
Yeah.
that. All right. Folks, this was great. We are going to get it edited and I'll get it out by Friday because there's a ball game. We'll get it out by then. And I encourage you to make use of it in any way, pull clips, whatever you need. I really appreciate this. I feel like you guys said some really important stuff this time that I didn't anticipate.
These two are like the smartest people up.
I'm not surprised. I just didn't know we'd go there. Like a world without CRMs.
Yes.
I thought
Emily,
you
I
were going to
agree.
tell me
I've been
that's
saying this
crazy.
for months.
Wow.
Yes.
Eric, we got to spend
Wow.
more time together. I love meeting you.
Eric's
my
not
white
sharing
whale,
your
I
feelings
just-
when he was at Virtuous, though. He was not all about stay where you're at when he was at Virtuous.
I had to sell Salesforce for a long time.
Well, I was the real person who would have the real conversation of saying, you don't need to migrate. You're good there. I still believe in, I did then, I still do. Yeah.
It's a very
Good stuff.
interesting world these days. I think the next 5 years are going to be something
Yeah.
weird.
Oh yeah.
I didn't ask you this question. Let me ask you this. The decline of the small donor. What's the fix? Eric, what's the fix?
Are they declining?
I think the last report, they were bumping back up a little bit, but the cliff, it might just be the death bounce that we're seeing. I don't know.
This is not the answer because people are going to do it because it's going to be the hard answer. I'm a firm believer in getting out there, saying thank you, do the personalization, connect with as many individual small donors regardless, use AI and
Yeah.
efficiencies to Emily's point earlier. Let that happen on the end. My mission moment for this year happened in January, at the early part of the year. I used to raise money for my fraternity foundation nonprofit. And 20 some years ago, this guy came up to me in January and he was like, you don't even remember this story. You sat down with me, asked me for money and everything. And he was younger then, obviously. And he wouldn't give. And of course, I came back to him. I was like, well, do you drink beer with your fraternity brothers? And he's like, yeah, I do. I was like, would you donate a beer? Like we do the would you donate a coffee kind of mindset. He's like, Eric, I gave $5 a month for 12 months. And the next year you came back and you asked for $10 a month. Then you came back and asked for $20 a month. He told me in January of this past year, he just surpassed 150,000 cumulative giving to the foundation.
Wow.
That's the hard stuff, right? Like we're not going to look at those 10 and 20 and $5 monthly donors as like hitting budget or meeting needs or doing our goals. But if we can focus on the lifetime value of the donor and build relationships, that's where we have the greatest impact. And that's where I think AI can do those things in the back end to help us do that faster.
Love that. Small donor. Emily, what are your thoughts?
I agree with Eric in personalization. Stunning the poor stewardship that our industry tolerates, right? There's partly a reason why our retention rates are so bad. Just the basic thank you note and leveraging AI for more personalized engagement. Totally agree with that. But I also would maybe throw a wrench in and say, maybe it's not bad that they're going away. In peer-to-peer, at least, if they were giving to my birthday and they knew nothing about the cause, it was just my birthday, it was really transactional. And I always think about the lottery where you had all these Facebook donations, but you never had their contact information. So maybe doing better with fewer donors might actually not be a problem. You know, we used to have 7 million records in our database, but they weren't all that useful.
Interesting. Mark, thought?
With Gen Z coming up and giving a lot smaller donations to more places, I think it's all going to add to the mix. So I think it's just reaching out to everybody in all the ways and trying to get to know them, their why for your organization, and see if you can fill it.
Change starts with just one person, and that person is you. If today's episode got your gears turning, share it with your network and drop us a review. That review helps more people find us and spread the good. Until next time, this is Katrina with Seeding Social Good. Stay inspired, keep making waves, and let's create a better world together.